I don't want a little kid between 13 to 18 to come in here and be able to read about blowjobs on other guys. How is that education?
Are you deeming yourself the judge and the arbiter of what my children read?
Is this giant bookshelf that says book sanctuary, and 90% of the books on there regard genderqueer topics.
This is what I describe as child pornography, because it describes children acting in a very inappropriate, in fact, obscene, pornographic way.
I'm concerned about my 7-year-old son having access to things that I thought I could go on a Saturday and he would be protected from. I thought that was the whole point of a children's section.
Are you presuming to be my children's guardian or my children's parent? Are you presuming to tell my children what they should read?
I am saying that there are standards of decency to which all of us are subject in this universe.
I have such a huge problem with putting sexually explicit information out there for children to read.
Will the Mount Laurel Library accept and include within any sanctuary display books that express a biblical view of gender identity, or will the library discriminate against those kind of books?
As soon as somebody said, don't read that book, don't read Playboy, don't look at Hustler, that's the first thing they're going to do. They're going to go look for it. That's all I'm going to say.
The best way we can love our neighbor is not allowing these books in the library. And if we do allow them in, why is it that they get displayed in the front and we're pointing people to those books?
Very, very sad to think that a child would be deprived because somebody else thinks they shouldn't read it. That's all.
But these are nonfiction books that describe sexual acts between men, boys, but the guy who writes the books is going back to his younger years.
At least one of them has questioned their sexuality and various things about themselves. This is all off script at this point. And I just want to tell you that being able to find people that they can identify with in characters is meaningful to that child.
Meadow Court, I prepare something. Public spaces should protect the First Amendment, but certainly explicit and salacious media should not be available in our libraries, and certainly not funded with tax dollars.
Because it makes it seem like there are people attacking books, and you would have to harbor books and protect books. But we are asking you to protect children from exposure to indecent materials that are in this very library.
But there's no place for banned books in libraries. Thank you.
And, you know, as a religious ed teacher, as a Christian, all I know is that they're supposed to know us by our love. And I think the library is a place where you show that love by accepting everyone. So thank you.
Feeding that information to these children is just beyond me that any library could even consider it.
When you tell your kid not to do something, from experience, your kid is going to do it.
We can't just say here and bury our heads in the sand and say everything that is written deserves to be in the library.
And yes, my wife and I do look at the books that she's reading, but I don't care what book it is, as long as she's reading. You know, whenever
sit down and, you know, and maybe it's not age appropriate for them. So
then I don't know where that line in the sand goes. Are we going to start to say that any book that, if I say I'm not religious, which I am, I'm a Christian, but if people start to say these books can't be here, then no religious books can be in the library.
Does sanctuary mean sanctuary for everything that's written?
I have a question and a statement. Can I ask a question?
You ask a question, but I know the board's not going to answer.
I wonder.
This is not a Christian nation.
And conservatives who are concerned about protecting children, not about banning classics or book bans, however it wants to be characterized, we have a voice too.
Would the town council support the equal and both sides presentation of literatures so that the biblical viewpoint can be expressed, as well as the other viewpoint, as Mr. Cleaver pointed out. The biblical viewpoint apparently is not being presented at the library. Thank you very much.
I would support it, because
Thank
that's
you.
the whole point, is to have both sides of the perspective, both perspectives available at the library.
I have 2 transgender children in my family. They need a place to go. You don't need to lock them in a corner just because they're not like you.
I don't know. I'm just saying, Catcher in the Rye was pretty dicey. If anybody's read it, there's a lot in there that might come up as controversial.
And what's obscene, in my opinion, is in the eye of the reader. As far as the children, we have to trust the power of our child.
Now, anybody that says that their child could identify with that, and they would want their child to identify with that, needs to question their parental capability. Okay? This has got nothing to do with religion. It has to do with you are the parent, and if the parent does not protect the child, what is your duty?
The issue specific to sanctuary libraries may have been a surprise today, but the issue in the culture is not, right? This has been an ongoing battle in the culture, and I would just suggest that you might want to contemplate, can a culture even fund a library if we can't have a standard? If we as a culture, as a town, as a region, can't agree upon what standards of morality are, if we don't have an objective standard by which to stand upon, and that objective standard historically, for the founding of this country until very, very recently, has always been God's Word, the Bible. Whether you're a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, they all tie back to Abraham and to a common set of laws. And we need to uphold those laws, or our city, county, state is going to crumble.
Week has been the least hopeful that I've been for the future of our country. Yeah. When I saw how people reacted to being presented with information that their children are being exposed to pornography in the library, you would think motherly instincts would kick in, and it would be like a swarm of bees that were there to defend the children. Instead, a swarm of monstrous women came together to defend the pornographic book that we were warning them about. All the feminine instinct of protecting children has been deadened and hardened to the point where these women were wanting their children exposed.
When you think you can keep kids, especially adolescents, they're gonna find it. They're curious. They wanna read it.
To the most horrific things that could even be described.
Okay, so the folks out there just watched a montage of some of the most egregious things that happened in the Mount Laurel Township Council meeting and library, where basically Mount Laurel wants to put pornography in our libraries. Is that a good summation?
Yeah, and more than that, like, it's not that they're just going to put a penthouse magazine in the adult section and keep them from children. This is putting pornographic material in view of children, where children are able to access it, where a 13-year-old is able to access this book and check it out. So it's child exposure. It's a child endangerment. It's reckless. It's incredible. But you know what, Joe, as horrible as this week was in watching where our country is with regard to these things, some women from our church that spoke up in that meeting were touched by the Spirit of God.
Courage.
They had courage.
Courage.
They were taking hits by the swarm of bees that were so angry at them, but it didn't slow them down. They got more emboldened by the Holy Spirit, and they spoke the truth. And that's what needed to happen, because parents need to be called to be parents.
and
Really
protect
great. I
children.
was so encouraged. I was so encouraged by the courage of our men and women that stepped up and came out to the Mount Laurel Library and to the Mount Laurel.
Another conservative gentleman that we didn't know, the only other conservative in the room that spoke up other than Cornerstone people, and he
Yeah.
made that point. Like, there has to be some kind of standard. If you say a book sanctuary, and
Right.
by that you mean every book is protected, that means you're saying you want David Duke in the hands of a teenager, or how to make a bomb that could blow up a, a school or something. Like, no, we're not giving sanctuary to every book. There has to be a standard. And his point was, even if this gentleman, Pastor Jeff,
Right.
thinks that the book Flamer is inappropriate pornography, maybe you disagree with him, but the idea of a sanctuary removes that very concept of vetting. You have to vet materials. And this was somehow just over the heads of the people in that room, or probably more likely against their narrative. And so they tried to obfuscate the point and bring up Catcher in the Rye and the Bible and things that they say are bad. Did you notice the vitriol against the Bible, especially Joe when you spoke?
Oh yeah.
By the way, when I commend the women in our church for how they spoke up, the men also spoke just as boldly. And but the issue in a room full of 60 women and 5 guys that came like puppy dogs with their
Our
wives.
voices don't count.
Yeah, it was whatever we said was going to be regarded as toxic masculinity. And
Correct.
just thrown out outright. But what that gentleman said was exactly right. The idea of a book sanctuary to give safe haven to all books just means you're not going to vet.
And I think that I hope that the library trustees recognize that it wasn't just people from Cornerstone Church that are upset with pornography going into the library and our children being unprotected. And I don't know where that gentleman was from, but we don't know him. He's not on our quote unquote team, but he is on our team, and he made great valid points. I also think, we always talk about postmodernism all the time, and I just think people's brains don't operate properly. They're broken.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't know how to take a logical argument and respond in a logical way. It was straw man city last night. There was a whole bunch of straw man. They would argue, we would say pornography, they would say Catcher in the Rye. No, not equated.
Right.
1980, I mean, they argued things that were nonsense.
Yeah, they did. They tried to paint it as if we're just trying to ban books because we're against learning and education.
Right. Couldn't be further from the truth, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and then they made weird comments about the Bible being mentioned too much in the library catalog.
Well, they were trying to undermine my point, which is when I requested books on the Christian perspective on gender
Right.
and sexuality,
Right.
there was nothing in the library. The two most popular books on the conservative side, which is the traditional view, it's not only Christian, like you mentioned, Islam, Judaism, historically. In fact, all around the world, apart from the parts of Western civilization that have been overtaken by secular humanism, most of the world still holds to sexuality being a God-given ontological reality and not just a subjective idea of the mind. So this is a new thing that they believe. But listen, Joe, what we saw was a religious commitment. It
Yes.
was clearly political because the whole book sanctuary thing is coming out of Ron DeSantis's Florida and Abbott's Texas, and the movement that's been happening nationwide to protect children from DEI and pornography. So they made a political statement, but there's also a religious zeal that motivates them. They're upholding secular humanism.
Right.
And that liberal world order that nobody can tell anybody anything, that there can't be a standard, and most importantly, that the standard must not be the Bible.
And I'm hoping some of these trustees are watching this episode. Maybe they'll find this. And when you say that they're acting religiously, some of these folks that have maybe rejected their Christian upbringing or Judaism, non-Talmudic, maybe even, or maybe something else, they've rejected some form of religion. And what we're saying is they've created a new religion because everyone's designed to worship. I mean, somebody might benefit from you exegeting that a little bit.
Yeah. So with regard to the word, the etymology of the word sanctuary,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
from the root, which means holy place. And
Mhm.
then there is colloquial usages of sanctuary that have come to mean safe haven,
Mhm.
right? Of course, there's no arguing that, but there's also no arguing the point that the word is fundamentally religious in etymology. So
It's so
there's
dangerous
always,
that people don't know what
yeah,
etymology means, and they're
yeah,
thinking that, okay, whatever Google says a word is defined as
yeah,
today is the new
yeah.
definition, as opposed to etymology, which is the history or the origins of
The
the word,
origin of the
right?
word. And
Yeah.
more than that, also, if you were to just look in the Oxford Dictionary or any dictionary, the second, third, fourth definition will still say a holy place,
Right.
right? And so this was just making a point that to take this language, book sanctuary, is giving this like religious crusade kind of appeal to the movement. And it was a political movement, but I'm saying it was also religious, which explains the zeal. There is a faith commitment to a particular worldview, namely
Mhm.
secular humanism and
Right.
the LGBTQIA agenda,
Mhm.
which dominates the thinking of a person who would so advocate and zealously defend, as if there was some transcendent principle upon which they stand. But removing God and the standard of the Bible, all that Darwinian evolution gives us is just a rudderless, lost, meaningless world.
Yeah.
There is no objective standard. Postmodernism can only give you your view of truth,
Right.
your private view of truth. So to
Right.
make a transcendent argument that we must value each private individual view of truth equally is a religious zealot kind of argument,
Yeah.
because it's not built on any foundation. So anyway, like you were saying, there was a religious aspect to that in the zeal that they displayed.
You know, as an apologist, do you think we're just spinning our wheels trying to understand other Christian heresies and Islam and West Eastern cultures when the real religion we need to fight on a daily basis is this
Yeah.
secular humanism? And it comes
Oh
in
man.
so many flavors, right?
Dude, they were so many of the people prefaced, I'm a Christian or I'm a Roman Catholic, right?
Right.
So, but it wasn't their faith commitment. They
No?
don't know the Council of Trent and the decrees of the Pope, or even they wouldn't even accept the infallibility of the Pope when he speaks ex cathedra from his seat. So a Roman Catholic in that room who's advocating for the secular humanist perspective isn't even aware of what Roman Catholicism has defined.
Yeah. I think that's a
So,
great phrase you just used, faith commitment.
yeah,
You label yourself, you wear for this, you wear the t-shirt of this, but your faith commitment is over here.
100%. And Tim Robinson pointed that out.
He did.
Pastor Tim stood up and he took heat for it. He's like, half this room has stood up and made a claim that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
But if you're a Christian, Jesus
Right.
Christ says, if you love me, keep my commandments.
What he pointed out was that your faith commitment is people stood up and said, I'm a Catholic, but, or I'm a Christian, but
Mm-hmm.
as a Christian, we all have to adhere to the new faith commitment of secular humanism.
That's right. Wow, we're getting right to the root of it right here.
I love it. It's
You
good.
know, but it was even, did you notice how some of the women kept saying, if we restrict the access of our children to anything, then
Yeah.
that's going to make them want it all the more.
Right.
What does that say about the parenting of the person who would say such a thing? They're testifying against their own child that their child does not regard the fifth commandment, honor your father and mother.
Oh, sure.
And the parent is testifying against themselves, saying, I have not taught my children to love the Lord my God with all, and their God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love their neighbor as their self. Because to love neighbor, to love God is the 10 commandments
Yeah.
summarized.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they testify against their own parenting. They claim to be Christian, but they haven't taught their children to obey the fifth commandment. Their children, evidently, whatever they say, the child does the opposite. So you're saying they don't respect you,
Right.
they don't obey God. When
Right.
given guidance, they won't accept it. So
Is
the
it
problem is fundamentally religious.
again, it's logically inconsistent and it's arbitrary, right? It's an inconsistency to say, okay, son, okay, daughter, you can believe whatever you want. And when you're 18, make a decision. We'll be here to parents don't even want to guide their children.
Right.
They just let them be whatever they want. It's like television roulette. I'm just gonna spin the wheel, see what influences me, and I'll grow up with pink
Joe,
hair and a mask on.
when Acts chapter 2, verses 17 and 18 talk about the Holy Spirit descending on the church, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, even
Yeah.
on your male and female servants alike,
Right.
God's Holy Spirit will fall and they shall prophesy. What Antoinette said to those parents when they started mocking and scorning and jeering, did you notice, by the way, that when the Christians were listening to those who were advocating that this book, Flamer, be protected in the library, we sat quietly and respectfully,
Yes.
never jeered them.
Never.
But when someone like Antoinette or myself, there were moans and groans and actually speaking out, talking over, disrespectful, lack of self-control, right? But when Antoinette spoke, she spoke by the power of God. And when the jeering and the hissing and the booing came from the crowd, the Spirit strengthened inside of her, and she gave a prophetic rebuke to the parents who were doing that. And she said, "You're just abdicating your role as a parent.
That's right.
Your job is to protect your children, not to expose them to pornography all they want, this, that, and the other, and they'll choose when they're 18. No, you as a parent must raise your children in the fear and admonition of the Lord."
And I love
And
what
that's
she
what
said in the
advocated.
parking lot. I love what she said in the parking lot. She said, but by the grace of God go I. Right?
That's a great point. What does that mean, Joe?
So she said a couple of years ago, I would have been in the same boat. I would have thought the same way. And I may have more than a couple of years ago, but I remember thinking similar thoughts myself.
Yeah. Yep. But for the grace of God go I means that what we have come to understand by the word of God is nothing that came from us.
Right.
Everything in us was just like anybody else in the world that would believe the lies of secular humanism.
Yeah.
You'd be trumpeting it. I've often said that, I had moved to inner city Philadelphia for 12 years and, living in the ghetto and trying to reach kids with the gospel. If it had not been for the grace of God in my life, I would have become a social justice warrior.
Yeah.
I would have believed all the lies of diversity, equity, inclusion,
Yeah.
which is a lie. DEI is absolutely a lie. I would have believed many of those things because that's the water we swim in. Like, we're conditioned by the tide of the water. We're moved around by the waves, the winds and waves of doctrine. But for the grace of God, it was only that God, by his grace, revealed by his word the truth of how to live and how to walk with God and how to raise children. Maybe this is too much to share, but my daughter got near a perfect score on the ACT, right? This is a girl who loves learning and who has a strong mind, and it loves education. And if you look at the record of homeschoolers, in terms of testing and achievement, and Christian school students, it does far outpace what you see from the secular humanist indoctrination camps.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, what the world presents Christians as is enemies of learning. That we're against education, that we want to ban books like Catcher in the Rye in 1984 or To Kill a Mockingbird. But these are people who probably have not read 1984 like we have and understand where that actual threat is coming from.
So just so you know, on the clock, because I'm the clock watcher,
Yeah.
we're coming up on 18 minutes. And I feel like we could take each one of the people who spoke at last night's library meeting and dissect their worldview for another episode. We'd have 20 episodes to really go through and say, hey, how did this person get to this mindset? What are they communicating here? What do they think they're communicating versus what are they really communicating?
Yeah. You know what, Joe? Better than that. How about if there was one man amongst those who stood up? There were two or three. They seemed confident in their assertions.
Yeah.
They seemed like they felt like they were the defenders of truth, although they exposed children to pornography. So some kind of defender and protector they are. How about one of them come on our show and we'll do a debate with equal time? How about we give a moderator, allow equal time to express points of view. But Proverbs 18:17 says, "One man seems right until another comes to examine him."
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
I
And we,
debate that person and we'll examine presuppositions and we'll get to the root of the disagreement.
I think it's great. And we can do a really fair debate, not like the kind you see presidential candidates go through, but
Right.
one where each person had a set period of time and someone watching the clock, and then a question and answer period where each person got to ask a series of questions uninterrupted without being stomped on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can put signs up in the library, and someone will take, we get those pieces, you get an 8.5 by 11, you cut the little tabs on the bottom.
Yeah. You don't even need to do that.
Take one if you want to debate.
No, they'll watch this video. In fact, we can just go give them this video. We can give them a piece of paper. The head librarian can have it.
Yeah.
And the challenge is issued right here and right now.
Podcast at cornerstonesj.org. Send your request in as to why you should be the person who gets to debate Pastor Jeff Cleaver on this subject of pornography in libraries.
That'd be a great next step.
They don't want to admit that it's pornography, though.
Oh, none of them could read that book out loud.
Yeah.
And show the picture to any audience and claim with a straight face that it's not pornography. That's the thing. Objectively, anybody who has any half of a brain cell can understand that that's a pornographic page. And not just that page. There are multiple examples within that book. And that's the fifth most challenged in the book sanctuary debate. What about gender queer? What about this book is gay?
Yeah.
What about all of these other, the bluest eye and all boys aren't blue, and the ones that are actually challenged by conservatives, again and again, it's disgusting what's in those books.
Those different genres within that pornographic category have different agendas. There's some that support someone who's already become an LGBTQ person to reaffirm who they are, their identity, which is incredibly dangerous. But there's others that are helping them to come to a decision that their body is wrong, that their body doesn't fit who they are, and others that may even, I don't even know. I mean, I'm not an expert in these books. I mean, you've talked about them, but I do know that kids are really being harmed by them.
Yeah, it is a great wickedness, and it is it's very sad that you would tell a child that they are a human boy trapped in a human female body. What a terrifying thought. Rather than to help people think straight, think biblically, and understand according to the world as God made it.
Yeah.
To convince someone of that. And Joe, you shared very personally last night about your half sister. And doing surgery doesn't heal a mental illness.
No, she definitely has some sort of spiritual / mental illness. And I have another friend, a guy I played football with in high school, same thing. Both my half sister and this other friend of mine were abused by psychologists, and had ideas planted in their brain. In the case of my friend that's the same age as me, it took 10-15 years for a seed to grow in his mind to where he decided to go transgender. But he said to me, this was the most amazing thing. He invited us, me and a couple other friends, to go watch a football game, which we didn't even get to watch because he's given us a monologue about why he turned transgender, which was fine, really. But he's sitting there and he's sort of pandering to my, my religiousness, I guess you would call it, or his perception of my religiousness. And he says, Joe, I want to tell you, I thank God that I met that psychologist, because without him, I never would have known I was a woman trapped in a man's body. I'm like, excuse me, that's the problem. You never would have known unless somebody abused you, planted a seed in you after probably planting some drugs. I mean, some antidepressants, because he was suffering from depression, right?
Absolutely.
Same thing with my half sister. Every year, a different antidepressant, never getting rid of the old ones, just adding. And I'm telling you, when she turned 18, they got her. I don't know the exact date, but I'll tell you what, I only had a couple interactions with her afterwards, because she's mother wants to keep her away from my side of the family. And won't give her her LGBTQ drugs if she interacts with us. So there's like this whole crazy thing.
Wow.
But what I wanted to tell you about her, she says, I don't believe in children going through these surgeries. It's not right. You have to be an adult. She was 18.
Wow. Well, there was one of the moms that stood up yesterday, acting as if she was a great defender of those who are hurting, said, 2 of my children are trans.
Right.
So
Does she have any that aren't?
Well, yeah, you kind of wonder, like, there's a cause and effect here thing. You teach a certain worldview, you indoctrinate in a certain way, and lo and behold, there was a Barna study that recently came out that indicated in the age demographic between 18 and 23, 40% of
Right.
18 to 23-year-olds identified as LGBTQIA.
Yeah.
Now, a
And
lot
almost
of
all
out
of
of
them
that.
grow out, right? Almost all of them grow out of it. Isn't
Yeah.
that what it says?
Yes. Yeah, most of them will. That's another point, which also proves the indoctrination. But when I was growing up, they would say, yeah, homosexuals are 1% of the population, always have been, always will be in all cultures. No, this is a cultural contagion. This is learned and taught behavior. So, yep, that's what happens from the public library. They proudly display these books because it's part of a secular humanist religious political commitment
Right.
to indoctrinate children to go this way.
Right. So we're about 25 minutes in. I think we got to get to the videos. We're going to put down just some of the highlights. I don't think we're going to, put the whole thing. We'll try to keep it under a half hour. We had like 2 hours worth of recordings. Actually, more than that, with 2.5. But we're just going to put the most important things here. Of course, maybe, maybe we'll do some more detailed, in-depth looks at some of these people as we go down the road, because we didn't win the fight. So
No, they're going to remain their sanctuary library. Yep. And I mentioned to the librarian, you've successfully created the Mount Laurel Library for Democrats.
yeah, well, modern Democrats, I don't think old Democrats were this bad. I mean, my gosh, so many Democrats, and I think this is a little bit of hope. We keep talking about the upcoming election. There's a little bit of hope here. I think a lot of Democrats, they don't like this. This is not acceptable.
It's also funny. It was a bunch of white women in the room, but a lot of African American women in churches do not agree with the white women. And in fact, if you were to go to Africa, the view that these white women are pushing is considered horrifying.
Right.
Just witness that. I think the entire Methodist Church of Ghana, 1 million members left the Methodists when they embraced LGBTQIA. So it's not a worldwide phenomenon. It's amongst a certain demographic.
Yeah, and unless anybody try and take you out of context, I mean, you're just talking about the whole black culture in America. It's the culture has been more faithful to the Bible than the white culture.
Well, it depends. There is a certain part of quote unquote white culture that has moved towards secular humanism. But there's also a movement like that amongst blacks as well. But yeah, probably by and large, I would say blacks are less likely to embrace transgenderism and the LGBTQIA agenda.
Be really interesting to take your gray, red, and blue paradigm and put it on different cultures within our culture.
Yeah, well, the biggest divide is between like the urban secular elites, the rich whites, that are very often pushing the agenda and introducing these things. Like, who came up with this idea for the sanctuary library? Where did that come from? It was a political move. They were watching politics, and they decided to do that. So
yeah, and they didn't know their etymology. They probably didn't know that sanctuary is a religious word. They're thinking of a bird sanctuary.
Well, it's not only that. It's just that I knew that their retort to me was going to be, "We don't want your religion. Your Christianity can't define what's right and wrong." And I'm saying pornography introduced to children should be wrong just by general revelation. Just in a Psalm 19 sense, there's general revelation, there's specific revelation. You don't even need the Bible or religion to tell you that you shouldn't put that flamer book in front of the eyes of children. It's just common sense. every other religion would also agree, right? Islam would agree.
Yeah.
So now there's, of course, the Unitarian Universalist says our precept is anything goes. Well, okay, yeah, there are liberal religions, of course.
Big time.
But the point is, this whole book sanctuary idea used a religious word, sanctuary,
Yeah.
as it always has been a religious word, and that just displays the religious zeal of those who are pushing their religious secular humanism.
Right. Okay, great. Well, let's cut to the videos, Jeff. You ready?
Oh.
Thank you for your willingness to listen to our concerns. Being informed that this council had nothing to do with the declaring of a book sanctuary for our library, Cornerstone Church is appearing before you today with no complaint against this body. Rather, we are here to raise awareness and request your help. We need you to step in and reverse the library's political and religious action to proclaim itself a book sanctuary. The library's decision was political because it's part of a nationwide political movement. It is religious because the term sanctuary means holy place. Since the library is funded by our tax dollars, we are appearing before you. Our desire is to protect the children of Mount Laurel from inappropriate pornographic books like this one, Flamer by Mike Corrado. When I asked the librarian to find it for me, she told me that, of course they have it, but it was checked out. I also asked the librarian for two of the most prominent best-selling books on sexual identity from the conservative point of view, but the library did not carry those books. The library did, however, have Gender Queer and Flamer. Being that these books are checked out, we can assume that boys and girls right now are being exposed to the contents of these books this week. The librarian did retrieve for me another copy of Flamer, which I have in my possession, the large print edition, which I would now like to submit to the board for your review, calling particular attention to page 131, and noting that the librarian said that 13-year-olds are allowed to check out this book. Conservatives across the country have challenged many books. The top 5 challenged have been number 1, Gender Queer, with 106 challenges in 2023. Number 2, All Boys Aren't Blue, with 82 challenges. Number 3, This Book is Gay, with 71 challenges. Number 4, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, with 68 challenges. And number 5, Flamer, with 67 challenges. Please note that Catcher in the Rye and To Kill a Mockingbird are not on this list. If any librarians condescendingly claim that conservatives are trying to ban the classics, please be willing to see through that thinly veiled political maneuver. We are trying to protect children from indecent exposure. Please help us by seeing to it that our children are kept safe from the above-mentioned books. Return this book, if you will, to the library, or deposit it where it belongs, in a trash receptacle, but I never want to see this book again. My eyes are scarred, but my hands are clean. It is now up to you to clean your hands of this filth as well. As our representatives, please take the book sanctuary stick out of our eyes and take these books out of the reach of minors. Thank you. I would also be willing to answer any questions or clarify any statements if you have them at this time.
Are you giving us the book?
Please.
You can give it to Mayor.
To the office. Thank you.
I would like to speak. Councilwoman Cohen. I'm just going to read a sentence from a book that I read as a youngster. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Anybody know the first sentence of the book? Anybody here? 1984, by George Orwell. He spoke about totalitarianism, fascism, and barring people from material because you deem it objectionable is what he was writing about, what he was talking about. The library has a collection policy. Are you aware of it? Did you read it?
Yes, I have it right here.
Yes, and I did too. So, I will read a paragraph. The library does not assume the role of the parent, but rather encourages parents to be involved with their children's use of the library and to guide their child's selection of library materials in supporting their individual family values. Library staff does not monitor the materials children choose to check out. the responsibility, let me underline that, for the reading and viewing choices of children rests with parents and legal guardians. That is in their collection policy, available for anyone to go look at. Okay. My question to you is, are you presuming to be my children's guardian or my children's parent? Are you presuming to tell my children what they should read? Are you the arbiter of, or the judge of what is appropriate in my household?
I am saying that there are standards of decency to which all of us are subject in this universe. Presently, it's in your possession.
This is actually not an equivalency of what I just asked you, and you did not answer my question. Are you deeming yourself the judge and the arbiter of what my children read? I'm asking you a question, please answer. Thank you.
And I'm answering your question respectfully. The book that I have brought to your attention, page 131, is objectively, according to all standards of decency around the world, to be regarded as indecent exposure of children. And I'm very dismayed that you wouldn't want to read that to us, because you have that in the 13-year-old up section at Mount Laurel Library. So if it cannot be read out loud here, why is it available to children there?
You are still not answering my question. You are still dodging it with what you call subjective, what I call subjective, your comment. This is, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to fight you on this.
Well, it sounds like you are.
I'm going to continue talking. Thank you. When I was a kid, I went to school and my teacher said, you are not to read Judy Blume books. They are inappropriate and they are not for you. The one that she was referring to was, Are You There, God? It's Be Margaret, about a girl menstruating. I went home, told my mom, I'm not allowed to read this book. My mom put me in the car, along with my 5 siblings. And we went to the library, and she checked out all of the Judy Blume books she could get a hold of. Because my mother was in charge of what I was reading outside of school, not my teacher at school. And my mother made sure that I had access to library materials that she deemed fit. That's who my mother was. My mother was in charge, and my father, of what I was reading. Not a person at a church, not a person at a school, but my own parents were in charge of it. The library collection policy discusses this more than once in their policy, that the parents and the guardians are in charge of what children read. Children need to have access if they are allowed to have access by their parents. Okay? Nowhere in there does it say that any material that we find other people find objectionable means that parents are not allowed to decide that. You are also welcome to object to the things that the library has. There is in here as well. And their committee will decide whether that is appropriate to have out on the shelves. But one of the things I love most about our town is our library. I was a library board trustee from 2013 until I became a council member. I love our library. I think it's one of the best things we have in our town. And one of the things I love best about our library, besides our wonderful staff, the library trustees, all the people who come, all the programming we have, is that the people are allowed to access what is appropriate for them and what they decide is appropriate for their children.
Your anger and indignation is duly noted, but I would reiterate that there are certain standards beneath which we are not to delve, such as page 131 of the book Flamer. Township Clerk, would you kindly read that page? It's less than 50 words in total.
And I will also say, you don't get, I will keep the book.
Council, I would remind you,
the-
this is public comment period, this is not a debate.
Yes, you're right.
I will keep the book on record for today's minutes in case anybody wants to come in and read that section.
Thank you, Mayor.
Meadow Court. I prepared something. Public spaces should protect the First Amendment, but certainly explicit and salacious media should not be available in our libraries and certainly not funded with tax dollars. Libraries' goal, I approve of minors having unfiltered access to this content. Minors and their parents should decide, which goes along with you, what type of media is reasonable and seek it out at their discretion. It is not the government's role to provide all things to all people. What about explicit and salacious media for adults or other groups or other freedom of expression of various social and antisocial opposition groups? I do not want a special area within the public library where adults can gather to research or express their explicit or salacious interests. what is it going to look like, and how would that benefit the community? As a parent, my wife and I decide what is appropriate for our children. If it's difficult enough, it is difficult enough for my children, to find inappropriate online content. I do not want them to have access to unfiltered content. Unfortunately, there are plenty of websites and special interest groups can get their content. These adults and minors can go to a bookstore to view and purchase what they want. Regarding minors, our community should strive to strengthen the family unit. Minors should go to their parents, guardians, physicians, clergy, or counsel for guidance. I'm against public funding for this application of the First Amendment.
I want to thank you for this opportunity to come before you, and Councilwoman Cohen.
Your name?
Thank you.
State your name.
My name is John Laskin, Lasken. I'm at 701 Decatur Drive. And I want to say thank you for this opportunity. And Councilwoman Cohen, I want to thank you for your very appropriate comments.
Thank you.
The library should be a representative of literature and of opportunities for our youth to be able to explore truth. Now, if there is one side of a debate presented to the exclusion of the other side, the pursuit of truth is stilted. I think we would agree on that. So my question is, perhaps you are not the right ones to answer this, but you can direct us to where we would get this answer. Will the Mount Laurel Library accept and include within any sanctuary display books that express a biblical view of gender identity, or will the library discriminate against those kind of books?
No control over what they buy. They're an independent board. They do meet monthly. So I would urge any comments or questions that you have, you bring them up at the library board. They meet once a month, and I believe their schedule's on their website. But the town council does not make the decisions as to what is purchased for the library, what is housed in the library, or what policies or what resolutions are adopted. That is done by the library board, and they have their own attorney, their own board, and a director, and those questions should be directed towards them.
Thank you. That's a very good answer. Thank you very much. So we will look up on that, and I would only ask, and perhaps it's a rhetorical question, would the town council support the equal and both sides presentation of literatures so that the biblical viewpoint can be expressed as well as the other viewpoint? As Mr. Cleaver pointed out, the biblical viewpoint apparently is not being presented at the library. Thank you very much.
I would support it, because that's the whole point, is to have both sides of both perspectives available at the library.
It would be transparent. It's the first I'm hearing about this, so I'm kind of caught me off
so
guard. So if you see me scribbling notes, it's because I'm just writing my thoughts as I'm hearing what you guys are saying. I completely agree with the mayor. I don't believe in banning books in any shape or form. If there's vehemently a book like disgusting and vile, like Mein Kampf is in the library, it needs to be there. Books are not to be banned. So if there are any perspectives of running the gambit, because the library is there for education as much as humanly possible, I'm with the mayor in that regard. I don't think that there should be a discriminatory basis of books. Libraries are supposed to be overall, to use the term that we're talking about, sanctuary, a sanctuary for learning, for reading, to pick up the book, vehemently disagree with it and put it down, or to hear from a different perspective. I think that's one of the best aspects of reading and learning and education is developing your opinion after reading as much content as humanly possible, or seeing as much as you can. So no, I agree with the mayor. I don't think there should be any basis of, and that's, again, speaking individually, not for anybody in the governing body, I just don't think there should be banning of any kind of books. Even books that, again, I vehemently find disgusting or awful, I just don't think that we should ban books. It's just not the way.
I am very encouraged by your response that we would be able, with your support, or at least your acknowledgement to encourage the library to include biblical value books. Thank you very much.
Hi. Hi. My name is Heather Malave. I am a mom of 9 children, and this subject concerns me greatly because in a library, to be, like, I understand the idea of having knowledge and having free speech, but there's a time and a place for knowledge, and there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom is something that you can withdraw on 200 years ago, and it'll be present 200 years from now. But I think like the flood of knowledge that's coming through, not only through the media, but through technology and through the written word, is very, like, should be protected for the children's sake. And I know that you guys say you're not in control of the library, but I just know that you are in control of a lot of things that the town does and what is accessible, and I just would like you to consider that, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
Hello, my name's Joe Gormley, and I attend Cornerstone Church in Mount Laurel.
Your address, please.
511 Chanticleer. So I'm wondering, does the board have any decency standards in Mount Laurel? Are there any decency standards that are on the books that you guys are in control of, maybe for pornography shops? Is there any standard that you would intervene?
Most municipalities have a standard for pornography shops or things of that sort. Because of the case law that exists in the world, if we don't allow it in one spot, it's allowed everywhere in town. So it's isolated in most towns, including Mount Laurel. So it's limited in location in town.
So there is a standard of what pornography is and is not?
Not according to the Supreme Court.
Does Mount Laurel have a standard?
No, because the Supreme Court says you'll know it when you see it.
Mount Laurel, the Supreme Court of New Jersey?
Supreme Court of the United States.
Would have authority over a standard like that?
Yes.
In this situation?
Yes, because they.
Well, I think
That's the Mount Laurel attorneys?
it should be also stated, like, so when we don't pass laws or anything, we pass ordinances. When we pass an ordinance or a resolution, but it always has to follow the standard of the higher governing body. So the county, or the state, or the federal government. So we don't necessarily pass laws, or we want to have like what we would call like a decency standard. We have to follow what the law would say, and then like George was kind of alluding to, then you would follow that ordinance. Then so like the ordinance would say, okay, we know we don't have pornography shops or strip clubs in Mount Laurel, but like that, it's not necessarily like a law that we don't pass laws, we pass ordinance.
So your ordinance would have to meet the minimum standard. So the federal government might set a minimum standard of what pornography is, but you would have, as the lesser magistrate, the ability to add to those standards, to make them
It's the
more
reverse.
strict.
Municipalities are creatures of the state.
Hmm.
They can only do what the state allows them.
So we can pass anything right now. We can say like tomorrow, oh, we're against this, this, and this, and then one of two things could happen. First of all, the state will contact somebody from the state, depending on the department, would contact Meredith and say, or George, and say what you just did was not legal, or we'll get sued. And then somebody comes around and say, well, this is why we're going to sue you, and then the township has to pay for it. So it's a little more complicated. I always say this to Mayor Jen Jewett, her and I always kind of talk about it. When people see the titles mayor and deputy mayor and councilman and stuff, they come with this kind of weight of, you kind of see these titles in popular culture for the last, for your entire life. Like, oh, the mayor. I was literally watching Jaws with my family, and like the mayor was like, oh, keep the beaches open. And they're like, what would you do, mayor? Because I served there too. I was like, I don't know. I go try to kill the shark. I don't know. But that's kind of the thing. We rarely are kind of bound by what's higher than us. We have the ordinance
I know that's a popular opinion amongst attorneys, but I think that there's a doctrine of the lesser magistrates that does give you more authority. But that's a legal question we don't have to get into. But what I would ask you as you guys consider, as you're running for office and politicking, the issue specific to sanctuary libraries may have been a surprise today, but the issue in the culture is not, right? This has been an ongoing battle in the culture, and I would just suggest that you might want to contemplate, can a culture even fund a library if we can't have a standard? If we as a culture, as a town, as a region can't agree upon what standards of morality are, if we don't have an objective standard by which to stand upon, and that objective standard historically for the founding of this country until very, very recently has always been God's word, the Bible. Whether you're a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, they all tie back to Abraham and to a common set of laws. And we need to uphold those laws, or our city, county, state is going to crumble. So I would appeal to your better judgment to consider the doctrine of the lesser magistrates as you go forward, because you do have more power than you believe. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and close the public participation portion.
Yes, please. Please come to the podium.
I have spent many hours in this room during having programs. I've checked out numerous books. When my great niece and great nephew visit me, it's always on the agenda to come to this library. And the fact that this library has become a sanctuary library makes me love it even more. I thank you for that. I thank you for your courage. Uphold to reproductive rights. It upholds to whatever you want to do that makes your life happy for you. I believe that the people in this room who want to ban these books have the right to do so, have the right to have their opinion. But they do not have the right to tell me that I cannot read those books. They don't have to read them. Don't read them. Tell your children, don't read them. But don't tell me or the people in my life that we can't come to this library and check out those books. We have the right to do so. So again, thank you for your courage, and thank you for standing up for the rights of the people and the members of this library.
Thank you for your time. So, we are not here. Oh, my name is Jeff Cleaver, 661 Cornwallis Drive. Thank you for.
Say your name again.
Jeff Cleaver.
Thank you.
Yes. Those of us who have been concerned about books being exposed to children are not concerned about Catcher in the Rye. We're not concerned about 1984. We're not concerned about To Kill a Mockingbird. We are concerned about a book called Flamer, which on page 131 in this library, the large print edition, describes a group of boys, bleep, 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 but I need to censor that because there's children in the room that I wouldn't want to expose them to. And then the Mountain Dew bottle then becomes their liquid drink. And then at that point in time, the child makes some discoveries. This is what I describe as child pornography, because it describes children acting in a very inappropriate, in fact, obscene, pornographic way. I'm also a parent, and I would not allow my child to read this book, and I've heard people say, well, then don't let him. but I don't want my 14-year-old to be loose in a library where materials like this are available for him to stumble upon, nor my other children. In fact, I don't have my children in public school because the worldview taught in public school and by a number of people is, in my judgment, not what I want to expose them to. That's my choice as a parent. So I pay the money for Christian school. Yet I do have to pay taxes in this township. Yes, and that's right. May I continue, please, or is it your opportunity at the podium? Yeah.
Please let Pastor Kluwer make his comments.
Yes. And so the action of the library, unprovoked in any way, shape, or form, last month was for you to take a political action to declare yourself a religious body by choosing a religious term, book sanctuary. The word sanctuary means holy place, and a political action that has a national context relating to the governor of Texas and of Florida that we all understand. This was a political action that you all initiated, and it feels to us, whether you want to laugh, mock, scorn, whatever you think, it feels like a stick in the eye of people who do care about things that are very important to us. So this is how you can receive the input and the feedback however you like, form whatever opinions you have, and I don't expect that I can persuade you otherwise, but understand that this was your action. The book Sanctuary was a political movement, political statement that you made, and conservatives who are concerned about protecting children, not about banning classics or book bans, however it wants to be characterized, we have a voice too. Those of us in agreement with this would request that you not dabble into politics, not proclaim this library a book sanctuary, because it makes it seem like there are people attacking books, and you would have to harbor books and protect books. But we are asking you to protect children from exposure to indecent materials that are in this very library at this moment in time, where
Amen.
children can access them. So that is our request, and do that with it as you will. But thank you for your time, respectfully.
My name is Brenda Chalmer. I'm from 549 Norwood Road. I have raised 4+ kids, 4 on my own, 1 homeless. I put them all through the schools here, and I do understand your feeling, but I'm going to tell you something. I think you're going about it the wrong way. Listen, when I was 11 years old, I was reading the carpet baggers and stuffing it under mattress. When you think you can keep kids, especially adolescents, they're going to find it. They're curious. They want to read it. As soon as somebody said, don't read that book, don't read Playboy, don't look at Hustle, that's the first thing they're going to do. They're going to go look for it. That's all I'm going to say.
So my name is Ed Campbell. I'm the attorney for the board, and echo the comment, everyone is welcome to speak. We're happy to have so many people here. But I would ask that those who come forward address the board, share their comments and opinions with the board. I would prefer it not to be a debate among all of us here, right? And I don't mean to be critical, but we're here to listen to your comments. We want to hear your comments. I know the board does. If we can keep it into that form rather than a public sort of open debate. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, good evening. My name is Crystal. Be reasonable now, okay, and educate them about your family values. But there's no place for banned books in libraries. Thank you.
So culturally, we do have a shift. I'm also a stepmom to 2, and between the 4 kids, at least one of them has questioned their sexuality and various things about themselves. This is all off script at this point. And I just want to tell you that being able to find people that they can identify with in characters is meaningful to that child. This is not a Christian nation. It was founded on freedom of religion, and this country has not crumbled, as someone said it would, without God's word in the past 250 years. We are all free for our own religion and our own beliefs in our own household. That's what makes us great. That's what makes us diverse. I checked on the library database, and this includes all sorts of things. So it could be an ebook, a real book, an audiobook.
Good evening, John Natoli, 502 Mulberry Cove. I have a question and a statement. Can I ask a question?
You asked a question, but I know the board's not obligated to answer.
I wonder if somebody could explain the difference between a book challenge and a book banning, because it seems like the conversation sort of gets generalized into book banning. Can someone explain the difference between a book challenge and a book banning?
I'm going to ask that the board defer responding to comments because we just have too many people with comments. But I think your question is well noted, and I would expect that after public comment, the library director.
Well, then I guess my only statement is, I hear a lot of talk that certain people shouldn't be telling certain people what to read or not to read. And I think the same is true for the library. I've been to the library a couple of times in my many years, and the library is a very organized place. Fiction, literature, science, and so forth, right? And also, I guess, adult sections and children's sections and things like that. Well, at the Morristown Public Library, when you walk in there, front and center is this giant bookshelf that says Book Sanctuary, and 90% of the books on there regard genderqueer topics. So it seems to me that the library is promoting, inviting children to come over to this, and maybe children 8, 9 years old. There's no police officers out there, standing alongside this bookshelf. Any child can walk up to this thing, grab a book, sit down, and maybe it's not age appropriate for them. So it's not just a matter of taking these books out to the parking lot and burning them, but it's about being responsible. That's my statement. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ivan Solero. I live over at 6 Manchester Way. The question, and I guess the question that goes to everybody is what standard are you having for people to go ahead and take these books out? You have to be a certain age to smoke, you have to be a certain age to drink, you have to be a certain age to vote. And there's a certain sense of where I'm kind of trying to piece this thing together between sexual politics and sexual ethics. And where does that fit in terms of enlightenment for a young child to go ahead and gain a book? So at what age do you think that's appropriate? And I'm still, from everybody, and I understand where everybody's coming from, but when is it age appropriate? What's that line? And I haven't heard it from you guys, and it'd be helpful if we did that. Going back to what John was talking about at Morristown Library, if you're promoting and marketing, because basically you're marketing a book, you're marketing these books, where's the line there to go ahead and say, are you appropriate enough or not appropriate enough? Now, I heard from other people saying, well, it's up to the parent. But if the child is there by themselves, where's the line? Where is that line? What is it? Is it a 10-year-old? Is it a 13-year-old? Is it a 9-year-old? And I think those bigger questions need to be explored and understood and added value there, at least from a parental side as well as from an administrative side, where we can say, okay, the funnel goes in there, you have to be at a certain age to really grasp this. But right now it seems nebulous. It seems like it's just out there. And I think that's a dangerous precedent to go ahead as you're moving forward in terms of talking about this issue, because it's not going to go away. All right. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Then I don't know where that line in the sand goes. Are we going to start to say that any book that, if I say I'm not religious, which I am, I'm a Christian, but if people start to say these books can't be here, then no religious books can be in the library.
Janet Lex. I just want to say I love the library. I adore the library. I have such a huge problem with putting sexually explicit information out there for children to read. 1 in 4 at minimum, this is just reported cases, of girls are sexually molested, raped, before the age of 18. Do we really want to feed into that mindset of more children who are going to have more access to this type of information and then more likely to commit these crimes that destroy people? I know so many women who have experienced things that I'm talking about. Some by their brothers, by neighbors, by uncles, by cousins, young male perpetrators usually, because they're curious and they read this stuff and they might have their own unfortunate mental issues or whatever going on in their heads, emotional issues, and they end up acting out on it. Well, feeding that information to these children is just beyond me that any library could even consider it. As far as banning all of the books that were mentioned earlier, as far as, Of Mice and Men and on and on. I have nothing wrong with those books. I'm not here to ban books. I am here to limit what we put into the heads of children. It's dangerous. Thank you.
Amen.
Hi, I'm going to put on my teacher voice so you can hear me in the back. My name is Joyce.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Riley.
I'm Brian Sharp. I live at 19 Biddle Way in Mount Laurel. I know a lot of people here are saying this is a political thing. I'll come out and say I'm the president of the Mount Laurel Democrats, and I don't see this as a political thing. I'm here speaking as a parent. I have a child who had dyslexia. She used to come to this library, and this library was there and helped her overcome dyslexia.
And if you're not safeguarding your children against the age of information and the internet, trust me, these books are the last thing you have to worry about. Because none of this is going to stop them 5 years from now doing whatever they want. Thank you again for what you've done.
And I think that is what's most important, to not deprive them of that. That's very, very sad to think that a child would be deprived because somebody else thinks they shouldn't read it. That's all.
Life. And although it may not be your belief, queer relationships are out there in life. And, sorry, a little nervous. When you tell your kid not to do something, from experience, your kid is going to do it. So,
good evening. My name is Arthur Felderstein, 5 Crest Court. I wasn't planning on being here tonight. Actually, there was supposed to be a bunco game. I was part of a community.
We kicked you out.
You did kick us out. But when I heard what was going on, I decided to stay. And personally, I will identify myself as a political conservative. There are people in this room tonight, and I'm addressing this to the board. I'm going to ask a question. I realize you can't answer me now, but I think it's worth addressing to the crowd here. there are people in this room that said every book is worthy of being in a library. And I would say to you that no, there are books that are not worthy of being in a library. Books written by, for instance, who has written a number of books, David Duke, former Grand Master of the Ku Klux Klan in Louisiana. I would suggest that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is a historical fraud and promotes genocide, are not worthy of being in a library. So my question to you is, what vetting process do you use in bringing books into a library? And does sanctuary mean sanctuary for everything that's written? Because if that's the case, I would challenge the concept. I'm not talking about religious issues. I'm not talking about political issues. I'm talking about hate speech in books. And does this being a sanctuary library extend to that? Because from what I've heard, and from what I've heard people say, every book belongs to the library. I think that somewhere you have to draw the line. Be it drawing a line according to what this gentleman said, or drawing another line. So I'm just curious as to who determines it. And I'm not saying that your opinion is valid or not valid. I'm not saying other people's opinions are valid or not valid. But we can't just say here and bury our heads in the sand and say everything that is written deserves to be in the library.
Amen. Well said.
I'm just asking for comment on the vetting process. Right? Thank you.
As far as the children, we have to trust the power of our child.
Hello, my name is Antoinette DePaul. I reside at 28 Breton Way, Mount Laurel. And I find this discussion rather disgusting and depraved because we are the adults in control. We are not here to let our children dictate to us how to raise them. We are here for the very short time that they are young adults, till the age of 18. After that, they can do what they want. However, you have nonfiction LGBT books, nonfiction. Now, if this were fiction, it would be a different story. But these are nonfiction books that describe sexual acts between men, boys, but the guy who writes the books is going back to his younger years, recounting the story. Now, anybody that says that their child could identify with that, and they would want their child to identify with that, needs to question their parental capability, okay? This has got nothing to do with religion. It has to do with you are the parent, and if the parent does not protect the child, what is your duty? What is your duty? You are giving in to the depravity of everything. Really, it's funny, isn't it? You see children, I thought we came a long way from the 60s when Playboy came out, Hustler came out, strip clubs on, in almost every town that had a liquor license. So they're all feigning by the wayside. Why aren't the magazines of Hustler, Penthouse, why don't you start promoting that too? Or is that because that is still nonfiction pornography, but that crosses a barrier, doesn't it? So if you can allow pornographic books to be sold, to be paid by taxpayers, every one of you is responsible for what our children read, then you need to take, if you're gonna do it for one group, do it for all of them. So if men wanna have the young sex magazines in here, bring that in too. If gays want to have their books, their magazines in here, put that out front too. But you can't tell me, as a parent of two who did come to this library when it was respectable and was a library not to promote an agenda, but to promote intellect, knowledge. This is not knowledge. This is not knowledge. I don't want a little kid between 13 to 18 to come in here and be able to read about on other guys. How is that education? I think what you need to do is reevaluate how the standards have devolved into sub-decency. And do a reevaluation. Listen to not just the majority, because just because they're the majority doesn't mean it's right.
Amen. Joe Gormley, 515 Mount Laurel Road. I think there's a lot of logical inconsistencies in some of the arguments. The only books we're talking about are those that meet the standard of pornography. Right. And the question's been asked many times, by what standard? Mr. Campbell, I hope that you do broadcast what the library standard is so that we all know. Maybe Mount Laurel is setting a much better standard than Moorestown, Pennsauken, or the other few towns in South Jersey that have gone the same way as being directed by the American Library Association, which, by the way, does not have Catcher on the Rye, 1984, or any of these other standard books that we had that we're not talking. That's not the issue. The issue is pornography. The issue is the LGBTQ agenda that is destroying our country. If we as a culture do not have a standard objective, a single standard of what morality is, if we can't agree to a simple morality standard, we're not going to have libraries, we're not going to have schools, we're not going to be able to share a common purse for just supporting medical things or Social Security. Everything will be destroyed. We need a common moral standard. That moral standard from the beginning of time has been the Bible, has been God's Word. This country was founded as a Christian nation. If you don't like that, read it historically. The moral standards that have always, the founding fathers argued whether or not Presbyterians and Congregationalists could share a common government, right? So read about that. I'm sure it's in this library. We now have a much bigger challenge. We have to get along. But the moral standards we've had are agreed between Christians, Jews, and Muslims. It's the 10 Commandments. It's always been the same. And I'm going to tell you this, when I talk about this hurting kids, I'm going to tell you a very personal story. And I have more than one story. But there's a lot of abuse out there. And these books being on the shelves, you have confused children walking in here who have been told that they might not be in the right body, that God might have made a mistake and put them in a wrong body. Okay? They come in confused. They get information. And there are people out there on the day after they turn 18 want to disembowel them, cut off their breasts, cut off their genitals. And if you want to think that I'm exaggerating, it happened to my half-sister. It happened to my half-sister. I'll introduce you. She turned 18, she had her breasts cut off. She was brainwashed by psychologists that put drugs into her. Every year she got a different antidepressant put into her. And yes, she was brainwashed. And this happens. And we want to stop that, and we need some standards in our library. That's really all I have to say.
So, just a couple of comments off the cuff. First of all, the gentleman that and what's obscene, in my opinion, is in the eye of the reader.
I have 2 transgender children in my family. They need a place to go. You don't need to lock them in a corner just because they're not like you.
I don't know. I'm just saying, Catcher in the Rye was pretty dicey. If anybody's read it, there's a lot in there that might come up as controversial. And, you know, as a religious ed teacher, as a Christian, all I know is that they're supposed to know us by our love. And I think the library is a place where you show that love by accepting everyone. So thank you. Anybody else?
So there's a lot of Christians in the room, so oh, I'm sorry. My name is Timothy Robinson. We also have to say address. Yeah. 515 Mount Laurel Road. Since there's a lot of Christians in the room, the Bible says the 2 greatest commandments is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. The best way we can love our neighbor is not allowing these books in the library. And if we do allow them in, why is it that they get displayed in the front and we're pointing people to those books? And in the Bible, it's called adultery for a reason. It's not, you know, for kids. So I believe that we really shouldn't let them in. And all of you guys need to ask yourself the question, are you here to serve God and others the right way? Or are you trying to please people? Because if you're still trying to please people, you're not a servant of Christ. So if they're all claiming to be Christian,
They're all Christians.
All right.
Jewish.
Probably half the people that came up here said they're Christian. Okay. So what I'm saying, if you guys, you know, you guys have your moral standards. If you're trying to please God, I think the best thing to do is protect the children, because the children are the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So that's mine.
You're not allowed to speak. She said.
Too bad.
I would like to call this to a close. I'm very, very impressed with how much respect you brought to us and how well thought out your opinions were. And we appreciate hearing what you all had to say. You've left us with a lot to ponder, and I thank you very, very much for coming out tonight.
Meeting's not technically closed, but I think this
So
is.
public comments are closed.
Yes.
I just had a couple things I wanted to mention. That may address some of the questions. We do have what we call a collection development policy that outlines how we decide what books to have here. And in there is a procedure, a request for reconsideration form that any person with a library card can fill out and ask us to reconsider either having a book or where the book is located in the library. It's reviewed by library staff, and ultimately, if you don't agree with the decision, it is appealed to the Board of Trustees. I also want to mention that we take requests from people every day for books that they would like to see in the library. If you don't see a book that you think represents your viewpoints, we're happy to take those requests. If it's not available for purchase, we can get them through interlibrary loan. So I just want you to know that is an option. If you don't see books that represent your views, we're happy to have them. I think a couple of suggestions came in last week for books that we didn't have, and we have ordered them. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. I would like to call for a motion to adjourn.
No.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. No. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't
Secular humanist down. Pick them up.
Pick them up.
If you see a high librarian, tear it down.
I'm not sure that really works, but yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
Let's do it over. If you see a brother down, lift them up.
Lift them up. You
Yeah,
see a high place,
tear it down. All right. We're good. We could just talk. I think we're just having too much fun, Jeff.
Oh yeah. Oh,
You
they're
know.
gonna hit that. We're supposed to be wringing our hands right now and
Dower. As if Christ didn't already win. Come on, man.
Right. Amen, brother.